friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we're going to be working on a welt pocket. Welt pockets can be kind of scary, but they're actually pretty easy to sew if you take your time and are very precise with your measurements. So let's do it together. Okay, so today we're going to be using the Dutchie pattern as a guide, but you can really do this to anything that you have a side seam on. You just have to make sure that you have a liner. So if you're doing it to something that doesn't usually have a pocket, you'll have to make yourself a liner to go behind it to add your pocket to. But you can basically add it to anything really. So I've got my pattern pieces all cut out. This is my welt pocket strip, and I'm gonna fold it and steam it wrong sides together. And I'm doing it for both sides because I'm making welt pockets on both sides of my jacket. And I'm gonna grab my jacket bottom. So this is the bottom of the jacket. If you're doing it with another jacket, you're just gonna grab this. This is the outer seam right here. Even if you're doing it on a whole piece, if you have two together, you would do it on the outer seams. Here's my arm side and stuff like that. I'm gonna grab my pocket strip and I'm gonna measure. I had a ruler around here. I don't know where I put it. Found it. I'm gonna measure 3/4 inch from the outer edge. So here's my 3/4 inch. And that's where I'm going to place my that raw edge of my pocket facing out. 3/4 inch. And then 3/4 inch from the bottom. So let me do that first too. 3/4 inch from the bottom. 3/4 inch from the edge. Ooh, a little bit more. With your measurements with a welt pocket, you want to be very precise because you want to have enough seam allowance here at the side, so when you sew your back and front together, you still have space to stick your pocket through, or you might close it shut. You don't want to do that. So from the edge to the edge of your pocket, the inside edge, that folded edge, you should have 2 inches. So from the edge to the edge, you should have 2 inches. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pin it, and I'm going to baste it on. So I'm just gonna put a basting stitch on that will pull off later, but it makes sure that this flap does not move out of where it needs to be. So once I pin it, I like to measure it again, just to make sure that I didn't move it out of the way, didn't, move it around when I did it. See, like now it's almost a little bit too high, so I can move it down a little bit and make sure that it's right. So take your time and do that because I want to make this pocket, I want it to turn out really well, so I want to take my time with my measurements. There we go. When I am basting, I turn my stitch to a 5. It's just a straight stitch. And I'm just gonna go ahead and baste that on. Like I said, this stitch will be removed later, so we don't have to really worry about, what color it is or anything like that. And if your fabric is bunching up on you, when you try to baste it on, you can always hand baste it on. Maybe a little bit easier if you're using like a knit fabric for that flap or anything like that. All right, now that that's basted on, we're gonna grab our liner and we're gonna put it right on top, right sides together. And then I am going to feel where my pockets, my welt strips, where they end. I'm gonna mark it. There's one side and there's another one. This is a water soluble pen marker, so it will erase. And I'm going to measure 3/4 inch from that spot and mark it again. 3/4 inch and mark it. And then I'm going to measure 1 1/4 inches from the outer edge. That was good. 1 1/4 inches. That was good. How did I even guess that? 1 1/4 inches. And then I'm going to mark that line. Okay. And then I'm going to sew a straight stitch over that line. So 3/4 inch from the edge where my pockets end, my welt strips end, and then 1 1/4 inches from the outer edge in. All right, I pinned it, and now I'm going to go ahead and do it to the other side as well. All right, we want to make sure that our stitch is set at a regular length stitch. And when we begin and when we stop, we want to do a back stitch. So we'll start, and then we'll go back a couple times. That way you have it doesn't come unraveled at the end. And then we're just going to go all the way down and do that for both. And at the end also do a back stitch. All right, now this is what it looks like. We can go back and remove that first basting stitch that we created. Pull that carefully. All right, so now we're gonna move on to our next step, and in this step we need to make sure that we're really precise on our measuring. So we're gonna measure from that edge, from that stitch where we started stitching, we're gonna measure 1 inch in. So 1 inch in. And then from the other edge as well. And then we're gonna go ahead and measure 1/2 inch up. 1/2 inch up. And we're gonna do a mark. And then we're gonna mark from the edge, outer edge, to that line, all the way back. And now we're gonna go ahead and cut those lines. You wanna get as close to the thread as you can without actually cutting the thread. And you wanna be very precise on your measurements so that it makes a good pocket. You want to use very sharp scissors so you can get that really close edge. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and open it. And when you open it and you bring these out, this is what it's going to look like. So here's the flap, and here is just kind of folded over. If you have a big wrinkle right here in the corner, that means that you need to trim it a little bit closer to the edge, because this is what the pocket flap is going to look like. You want to make sure that this is straight. Another thing that you want to make sure is that this is not wobbly like that. If it is, that means you need to pull on it a little bit when you go to sew it together. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to open it up, and what I did is this flap, see, this is where I cut. It's got the 2 flaps. I'm going to fold this up, and I'm going to sandwich this pocket strip between the top flap and the liner. And now the liner and the outer are touching right sides together. So I folded this up right here, and now they're touching right sides together, and we're going to sew them together. So what we're gonna do is we wanna make sure that they're all lined up correctly. And when they're lined up, we're gonna sew right here from that stitch in the middle out to the outer edge, like that. We're gonna sew that, and we're gonna do that on both sides. We're gonna do that on this side, and we're gonna do the same on the other side. So I'm gonna fold that outer up. Now this one's facing up, and I'm gonna fold the liner down, and now this one is facing up, and our pocket strip is sandwiched between, and I'm gonna sew them together, starting here at that little point right here, and sew outer. Okay, so I've got the top and the bottom pinned. And I'm going to sew those this way, okay? Both of them. I'm gonna do the same on the other one. When we sew it, we wanna make sure that we back stitch so that way that stays nice and secure. All right, so now I'm going to open it. And when I open it, you should have this nice little pocket with a flap right there. And steam it. And steam it to take away a lot of those little puckers if you have any. And if you still have a couple, that just, you could go back and kind of cut it a little bit closer. But mine looks good. Make sure that that's steamed out. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back and top stitch down, over, and up. All right, so that's looking good. Now we're gonna turn the bodice to the wrong side. Make sure your liner is straight on. And we're gonna grab our pocket aligner and we're gonna place it right side together with the outer, right here. And we're going to pin around the outer edge. Now, actually, if you want to first, you can go and finish off this raw edge of your pocket on your serger. Just finish off that raw edge. You could do that on your serger or you could do it on your sewing machine with a zigzag stitch. Let me just go do it on my serger real quick. All right, now that that is ready, we're gonna put our pockets. We want those raw edges to face up, butt up against those raw bottom edges, the outer edge and the bottom edge. And as you can see, that's where the hand is gonna go right there. So you want this pocket bag to be whatever it's going to show, because see, it's gonna show a little bit right there. So when I sew the back on, you're gonna see a little bit of this strip on there. So if you want to do it the same color as your outer or whatever, that's up to you. I mean, you want to do it right sides together because the right side is what's going to show right there when you're putting your hand in your pocket. So make sure that you take that into consideration when you are cutting out the pocket bag. Then we're going to go over to our sewing machine and do a basting stitch around the edge of your pocket. So we're going to do a basting stitch all the way around. And what that's gonna do, that's gonna give us a base for our top stitching on the other side, because we want to top stitch from the top and we want them to be like straight, pretty lines. So you want to make sure that you have a guide. So that's what what this basting stitch is gonna give you. It's gonna give you a guide to sew that on. So what you want to do too is if you don't want to do a like a stitch, you can see if you want an invisible stitch or whatever, you can go ahead and do that now to place this pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for both and we're almost done. So now that basting stitch done, you can turn it around and baste your first stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from that basting stitch. So that way you have a nice little marker of where you're going. All right, then you can go ahead and remove that basting stitch and put in another stitch right next to it to make it a decorative little stitch, or you can do a decorative stitch on it if you want to, something pretty, something cute, or like I said, if you just want to do something light, you can do that as well. You know what I forgot? I forgot to change my stitch length when I did my stitch, so I might have to do that one again. But I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, that's what it's supposed to look like. Now I'm gonna go back and remove that basting stitch and do my other line of stitching. Basting stitch is removed, so now I'm just gonna go back and go over it on the other side. So I'm gonna go about 1/8 of an inch away from it again. All right, and just like that, we are done with our pockets. Now, all we'd have to do now is go back and put our side seams on, but our pockets are on. So this will get sewn on when you put your other top on, your side seam, that will get sewn on. You need to make sure you keep that seam allowance, and then the bottom will get sewn on when you sew your waistband or whatever it is that you're doing, or if you're hemming, then it would get sewn on when you hem. Whatever it is, whatever kind of jacket you're working on or top or whatever. It's just really cool to be able to do welt pockets because they look so cute. And like I said, depending on what fabric you're using underneath, you can use the same color fabric or you can use a contrasting color and it'll look super cute. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. Please let me know if you have any questions. Comment, like, share, subscribe if you haven't, so you never miss any of our tutorials. Please come find us on Facebook and Instagram so you can see what everybody else is making and you can be inspired. And then you can inspire us with your makes. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.